Hello. Nate here with the Volunteer Tech Vlog on the Live Sound 101 YouTube channel. Let's drive. And as we drive, let's talk about InfoComm 2017. I'll give my thoughts as I adjust my little mic here. You hear that? Yeah, I got a little scratch test you just heard there. Hopefully you just heard the scratch test. So I got my Rode Smart Lab hooked up to hopefully reduce some of the road noise. But anyway, I want to talk about InfoComm 2017. So I've been home now, for about a week. So the show ended about a week ago, and I've been home to kind of get back to work, get back to life, and let everything sink in a little bit. I recorded some video clips that you just saw while I was at the show. Didn't quite record as many video clips as I would have liked to. I recorded a few here and there. I also recorded some audio clips, but that's for an episode of AV Shop Talk podcast. So if you want more audio clips, you can check out, I think it's going to be episode 42 of AV Shop Talk, where I post all those InfoComm 2017 clips about the classes I took, and I had a conversation with a fan of the podcast, Jeremy, and just, what else did I record? I did a booth tour with Peerless AV to hear what they're doing, things like that. But it is interesting to, like, when you're at the show, there's so much information coming at you, and you're taking classes, and you're doing booth tours, and news is breaking, and it's I think it's good to do what I'm doing right now and just kind of let things sink in. So I'm just gonna see what simmers to the top here as I think about InfoComm 2017 and the big themes, the big takeaways. It's interesting to differentiate between gimmicks and actual disruptive technology, because I say that because one of the first booths I was at, what really caused me to stop and pull out my phone and start recording video, was this company called, I think it was Kinomo, and the video I recorded does not do it justice. It really doesn't. I mean, you see these kind of blobs kind of spinning around, and on the camera it just doesn't capture kind of what it is. But picture an LED kind of pinwheel type thing, where it's just a strip and it's spinning around real fast. Actually, might have been multiple strips spinning around fast with high quality LEDs. So instead of an LED wall, this thing's spun around. But the end result, because it kind of tricks your eye, it spins around, must be at 24 RPM per second, or RPS, revolution per second, 24. It must be, I would assume 24, 30, 60, somewhere around there, where it's spinning around fast enough where it actually tricks your eye into thinking there's a hologram, or there's a tiny LED screen that just kind of appears out of nowhere. And it was super cool. It was kind of a showstopper. It caused me to stop and pull out my phone. But come to think about it, is that technology really going to move the needle much in the AV world? And I don't think it will. I think it's a cool technology for a trade show booth, because you can put your logo on there, you can put a little video on there, and it gives the impression that this video is a hologram and it's just appearing out of nowhere, kind of like the Back to the Future thing. I mean, the Back to the Future thing with Marty McFly, where he's in the future and he's walking through the town center, and then the big 3D shark comes out and bites him. That's not quite what this was. This was just a static 2D type of thing, but when it turned on, it looks like it just appears out of nowhere. So it kind of had, it reminded you of that hologram experience, but it wasn't quite as immersive. It wasn't 3D. But I just mentioned that because you see a lot of cool things at booths, and there's a lot of people that are trying to get foot traffic into their booths, and they're doing some pretty effective demos in a lot of cases. And sometimes it takes a week later to like reflect and think back and say, that was really neat, but does that help my AV business? Is that really going to help me ship product on time? Is that going to help me design better systems? Is that going to help me offer a better experience to the end user? Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's some creative stuff with that, but you got to think about it. So I think Kinomo was a cool showstopper. That's why I took the video of it. See, where else did I say? So LG, I stopped by the LG booth. And that also caused me to pull out my phone and take some video, simply because the display technology that LG is working on is it's so thin. It's so thin. It's just it's like paper thin. It's like you could roll it on and hang it up with some Scotch tape or something. That's how thin these displays are. And so with that I think that truly is an innovative thing where you can now put technology in places you couldn't before. The LG booth, they're doing, and these are OLED or OLED displays that are ultra thin. They're also flexible. And if you haven't heard about this, the fact that they're flexible, I don't know, like it's pretty, again, it's a showstopper. And when you see a display on a mechanical apparatus, and the display is literally, it goes from flat to being curved to being flat again, that's a showstopper, right? It's like, whoa, I've never seen anybody do that before. And I'm not talking about, like, I think we've all seen large format LED video walls where they're 50 feet long and they curve. That's something else. This is like, picture a 42-inch or a 50-inch display, and that 40 or 50-inch panel actually curves, and they get, I mean, I don't know how many degrees that thing curves, but it's, I mean, on the video, it's noticeable. That thing curves quite a bit. So reflecting on that on a week later, it was definitely a showstopper. But am I going to be able to sell that to any of my customers or clients? I don't know. I mean, how do you sell the curved thing? I guess the only thing I can think of is if you're doing like a knock your socks off lobby and you're trying to do some sort of like really impressive, cool architectural, industrial design with some displays in a lobby, maybe. But again, that's kind of few and far between. I don't think that's going to move the needle for a lot of people in a lot of ways. So that's, I don't know, that is cool technology. I'm not sure how impactful it will be to have a curve. I think the thin thing is handy because you can mount the display with a lot less mechanical support. You can put displays where maybe you couldn't put them before. So that is actually handy to the integrator or the installer. But the curved display, I don't know. I'm thinking about that still. What else did I see? Now, here's where I do think the curved display makes sense. So LG, as I'm walking around the booth, they had this desktop display. It was like a 27 or 32 inch, something like that. But it had a gentle curve to it. It was like, think of like a cockpit display. That's kind of how I describe it, a cockpit display. A workstation for somebody who's doing audio editing, video editing, AutoCAD type work where you really got your nose dialed into this screen, and then it kind of has this gentle curve where it kind of like slopes around you. I think that is a very good application for a curved screen. When it's a small in-your-face cockpit display, small desktop type of display, that makes sense for a curved screen, and I kind of want one to do AutoCAD or to do video editing and audio editing. It would be cool to see the whole timeline and the whole sequence that just kind of wraps around. But I am not impressed with a large format display that is curved. There's been a few manufacturers. Geez, I think it was Samsung that had the curved. No, actually it was LG. LG had the curved display as well. And if it's a large format, like 40, 50-inch display, the fact that it can curve is impressive. But if I'm hanging that up on a wall, I don't see the value of a large format curved display really all that much. Because they had like kind of fixed curved displays for a while, and now they're boasting that they don't have to be fixed. They can actually be like fluid, flexible. They can actually move with the proper mounting mechanisms and all that. So I don't know. That's the whole curved thing. That's my take on it. Those were the big things. I mean, the high dynamic range, the deep color, the increased color gamut is amazing. I mean, when you see some of these OLED displays that have colors that you've never seen on displays before, that is super cool. I love there's a richness to some of these displays that make them seem, hyper real, or like more realistic than real life, if that makes any sense. Like, so you're starting to see the quality and the character of the displays really pop in ways they haven't before. I think that is cool. I like that, but at the same time, we still have generations of people that grew up with rabbit ears, and they're used to like tweaking the rabbit ears with the to not get snow, the visual static on screen. So it's like, how much do you really need to make it pop? And if you make it hyper real, if the display is so real, it's like more realistic than life. Is that just like, is it too good for its own good? Or people think something looks wrong because the displays look so sharp and the colors are so real, and it almost has an unnatural effect because they're used to seeing kind of lower quality screens their whole life. So even if the technology's better and you and I can talk about it and say how awesome it is, does that necessarily mean the general public, the general consumer will reach out for that and pull out their wallet and buy it? That's the other question. So it's one thing to do research and development and come up with better technology. User adoption is the other side of the coin. And if there's not a user adoption, it could be the most amazing technology ever. If people don't get it or feel compelled to buy it, it's kind of dead in the water and it'll just kind of disappear. So anyway, that's probably enough about screens and stuff like that. What else did I see from an audio? So the other big themes, like collaboration was a huge big theme at InfoComm this year. There's a lot of kind of enterprise collaboration tools, which are exciting for commercial integrators, but not so much for live sound folks. So I don't know if I talked too much about the collaboration tools. Things like Zoom, things like, it's like almost like a Skype alternative that has many more features than Skype. And it's really more geared towards business than Skype for businesses, in my opinion. I think Skype was great for what it was, and it spread pretty rapidly. But Zoom, check out Zoom if you haven't checked it out. It's got some pretty cool features. I mean, it's got recording built into it. You can do some cool stuff. And then Crestron Mercury, which coincidentally integrates natively with Zoom. Crestron Mercury was pretty cool. So this is what I've been kind of calling the starfish killer. You know what I mean? If you walk into a conference room and there's like the starfish phone sitting on the middle, just a speaker phone, but it kind of looks like a starfish, so I call it the starfish phone. So Crestron Mercury is more like a wedge, and one side of the wedge has a touch panel, the other side of the wedge has a built-in speaker, and then there's like 4 microphones around the outside at all 4 corners of this Crestron Mercury. And it's just a tabletop conferencing device. It allows you to dial a call, and it allows you to bring the soft codec. So think of like the BYOD, bring your own device culture we have right now, where people jump into a conference room and they might use Skype, they might use Zoom, they might use 8x8, they might use whatever the heck, Google Hangouts, they use whatever. And so this device is really designed to work with whatever you bring in there, because your just gonna merge here for a minute. Got a really slow cement truck in front of me. I'll be stuck here for a while. it allows you to bring whatever soft codec you want and plug it in there. And essentially the Crestron Mercury functions like a USB speaker and a USB camera. So when you plug your laptop into this Mercury, basically you tell your laptop to use treat the Mercury like a USB microphone and a USB camera, and then that Mercury is connected up to like a Logitech. It comes with like a Logitech 920 or whatever equivalent $100 USB camera, because we find in the collaboration huddle room space, good enough is good enough, and what more and more people are using are just really low-end USB cameras, because they don't really care about having the super high quality video as much as they care about super high quality audio. So anyway, the Crestron Mercury is a pretty innovative, neat little product in terms of what it is. Like I said, you bring the soft codec, or you can get it with Zoom natively built into it, in which case you would just have like a little NUC, little room PC kind of tucked away somewhere that runs Zoom. And then this thing can dial it up and schedule and everything. But a pretty cool little product. Now the other thing that makes Mercury such a value proposition for an integrator or for an organization is the scalability and the enterprise kind of back end to this thing. So rather than, you buy 1,000 speakerphones and then you gotta configure each one of them individually and deploy them. Well, actually, I think certain VoIP speakerphones probably have this scalability built into it. But regardless, it's got this enterprise kind of back end, if you will. They call it cloud provisioning, where you can kind of log into this thing and you can send updates to 1,000 of these. It's got basically remote management capabilities where you can monitor kind of what's going on. That's kind of what the industry has been focused on in the past, more so, is like remote monitoring. But this is like remote administration. This is kind of like another level. Like if you wanted to update a splash screen, I don't think the Mercury actually has a splash screen yet, but if you wanted to make some sort of change, you could do that. And you can see how people are using the room. So it's got some enterprise administrative tools that are pretty exciting for big organizations and for integrators as well, to increase their value. So anyway, that's probably enough on the collaboration side of it. And I think this little phone, this Mercury device, goes for I think somewhere between like $3,000 and $6,000, but depending on what options you get. There's different versions of it. It's not like a one size fits all. It depends on what you want to do with it. So that was another theme. What else did I check? I was looking for devices with Dante. I was looking for small form factor or different form factor equipment mounting solutions. So like you can get your standard 19-inch equipment rack that either sits on the floor or mounts to the wall. There's some pretty cool innovations from Middle Atlantic, from FSR, from Atlas, IED, where they're from Lowell Manufacturing, where they're actually coming up with new ways to tuck rack-mounted equipment into like a low-profile wall-mount cabinet of sorts. So, especially if you're trying to get some equipment into a crowded space, sometimes that might be your only option. So it's good to know about those products. I was looking at things like that. I think the Mid-Atlantic one was the VSW series that seemed to be pretty cool. I don't know, that's enough about the show floor, I guess, for now. It was pretty neat. They had like a whole food truck court, if you will, where you could go to these different food trucks. They actually weren't food trucks. It was like a plywood front that looked like a food truck, and then there was just somebody up on a little stage handing you food and stuff. It was kind of cool. They had a whole indoor park set up with like a There was like an acoustic guitar player, like singer-songwriter type person up there playing some music. So that was kind of neat. Nice little lounge area over there. But then the show floor was the typical show floor. The Orlando Convention Center there. What else about that? Although they had center stage going on, where there was like kind of like TED Talk-ish. Actually, I never even stuck around for any of the events at center stage. It was like right in the middle of the show floor, but I found myself, whenever I took so many classes, that in between classes I was running around at different booths. I never really found myself in a position where I was just kind of wandering the show floor to kill time. So I never really checked out center stage, but I guess they did a bunch of like awards and had people come up there and speak and do kind of like TED Talk type things. But I didn't really pay attention to those. But I did find it. Actually, it took me a while to find center stage, because I had been wandering around the show floor for a while and never even really realized where it was till like Friday. What else did I see before I start talking about classes? What else did I see on the show floor at InfoComm 2017? I almost saw virtual reality, VR, AR, and so virtual reality, augmented reality, and I don't know what the other thing that they're pushing is. I think those are the two, virtual and augmented. 360. So that's what. So they had a 360 cam set up at center stage, and you could put on these goggles, this headset, and you could basically transport yourself to center stage and like kind of like look around. And so they had these different stations set up where you could do 360 view, augmented reality, virtual reality, and this was by a company called Freeman, who does the software, and they partnered with Samsung, who does the hardware. So you've got to have, it's a little, I think this is where it's tricky to deploy augmented reality, virtual reality, 360, because there's multiple elements to pull this off, and it's pretty expensive at this point in time from what I understand, because you've got to not only get the technology, the cameras that support it, but then you've got to have some sort of creative firm that knows the software that can create for you this virtual or augmented environment, and that's what this company Freeman can do. So I stopped by the booth, I signed up for one of the demos, I put my name on the list, and they said, well, what would you like to sign up for? We can text you when it's your time to come here, and so you don't have to wait in line or whatever. And I'm just like, well, I don't know if I want to do it that bad. I don't want to get a text message and then have to come running across the floor. So I just said, well, what do you have that's open now? And I talked to a young lady who said, if you come over here, there's no line. This demo is wide open. So there was one guy in front of me, and he was taking about 10 minutes to get his demo experience. So I'm waiting and 10 minutes at a trade show, just sitting there, standing around. It takes a while. It felt like I was there forever. I'm like, okay, I want to check this thing out, but time's a ticking. And then so finally the guy takes off the headset and he's finishing up, and the guy running the demo comes over to me, talks to me, he says, okay, you're up next. Okay, let's, we gotta get this guy taken care of first, answer any questions he has. So he's really taking his time, kind of, as he should. He's trying to learn how this thing works and everything. But it's just funny when you're waiting in line behind somebody who's got these goggles on, and they're just kind of like looking all over the place. You're like, what's he doing in there? But anyway, it came up to the point where I take my laptop off. I'm about to sit down in the seat, and then somebody else comes over and says, oh, no. This person's in front of you. And I'm just thinking like, hey, that's not what they told me when I came over to this booth. They told me I was up next, and now they're telling me I gotta wait. And I said, forget it. None of that. I didn't have time to wait another 20 minutes to do the thing. But I would have loved to do the demo just to see what it was like. But I was ultimately too impatient, and I felt like I was misled. So I did not check out the Samsung Freeman AR, VR, 360, whatever it is video, but I think there are potential use cases for that type of stuff, but it's going to cost some big bucks to implement something like that. So I don't know, something to keep your eye on. Definitely a trend. The drones were gone. There were no drones, which I think was good. I mean, actually there were a couple of drones, but there was no like distribution house showcasing drones. It was all, the drones that were there were usually like showstoppers. They were honeypots to get you to stop into a booth, right? They're like, let's just have a big drone sitting here, and people will be curious about it, and they'll come over and we'll get foot traffic. That was basically the way I saw drones being used at InfoComm 2017. I guess I could talk about the classes now. So, geez, what class did I take? So I took Defense Against the Dark Arts, which was a pretty stinking cool class. There is a level of knowledge you need to have if you're going to take this class. I mean, if somebody handed you a laptop and a USB drive and they said, okay, I've got a build of Kali Linux on this drive, I want you to boot into this. That's basically, without any instruction, that's basically the kind of the barrier to entry on this class. Like if that would really confuse you, if somebody handed you a USB drive and a laptop you've never seen before, and they say, okay, boot into Linux. If you would have questions about how to do that, then this class was not for you. But if you could get a laptop you've never seen before and a USB drive with a build of Linux on it, and you know exactly how to boot into that drive and fire up Linux, then this class might be for you, because it was kind of assumed that you knew how to do that. And it was, to be completely honest, it was something I had to Google really quick because I forgot what shortcut key. Oh man, that was embarrassing. So everybody's sitting there booting up into Linux. They've got this like snake on their screen to do all this like crazy cool like penetration testing and hacking and everything. And I'm sitting there like, oh crap, what's the keyboard shortcut to get into the BIOS? Because I don't do this type of stuff all the time. I know what a BIOS is, and I know you can get into it, but it's just not something I do all the time. So you hold down F2, you can hold down delete. There's a couple different ways, but you have to do it at the right time. So when the computer's booting up, you hit the F2 key, and that gets you into the BIOS. And then from there, you can choose what boot drive you want. And so you pop this, and on the side, it's not like a regular USB stick where you boot into Windows or Mac, and then you mount the device to see the files. It's a different procedure. So I barely was able to do it, but it took me like a minute to like quickly get online and Google what the keyboard shortcut key was. And of course, I'm talking to my neighbor the whole time. I'm like, oh my gosh. Wait, did you click here? Wait, did you use the X64 version or the X32 version, or what, so I'm kind of I was that guy. I was kind of fumbling through. But anyway, it was all good. It was all good. Got it figured out. But we actually had some networking issues. So Paul Zealy taught this class, and did run into a few networking issues in the room where the switch, it was kind of this like networking hacking lab, and it wasn't, the switch in the room was doing some funny things or wasn't behaving quite properly. So it was a little tough. We couldn't do a lot of the stuff we were attempting to do. But that was just a little glitch. It was just ironic that we're sitting there doing this like hacking class, and then come to find out our network switch is something's wrong with it, and we're not able to do what we were supposed to do. But it basically, it showed you all the tools that are available to people who want to do malicious things. And so when you see the types of attacks that are possible, like they talked about brute force attacks, and just basically how easy it is. Like if you know somebody's username, you can basically get a script going and there's lists, text files that contain like the 10,000 most common passwords. So like a brute force attack would be, somebody's username. You set up this brute force attack, you run this script, and it just plugs and chugs all these passwords in against this username, and it just goes through all 10,000 as fast as the processor can handle, and it sees if it gets a match, and you can set it up to do multiple different usernames if you know them or whatever. There's some sniffing. There's Wireshark was on there, so you can kind of snooping and sniffing type of technologies where you can see what traffic is on the network, and then look at those packets and run little reports and see kind of what people are up to on the network. And then a lot of this stuff was really more advanced than I was at. I mean, it's stuff that I've kind of known a little bit about, but it's not something where I'm going to sit down on a Friday night and be like, all right, let's do a brute force attack. Let's try to do a denial of, I don't have the time to really learn that. I mean, it might be fun to do some experiments with it from time to time, but it's just not something that I'm probably going to be involved with a whole lot. But, you learn about what a denial of service attack is and how it works. And then, so the whole idea is you learn the tactics that a hacker might use, and then you can defend against it. It gives you kind of a leg up to defend against it. But with great responsibility comes great power. With great power becomes great responsibility too. So you learn how to do these things, and it's kind of understood that you will use them for only good purposes and for actually testing and hardening systems. So pretty neat though. One thing I wanted to mess around with a little bit was the Bluetooth sniffer. There was like a can't remember what it's called. This is all in Linux. It's open source stuff. But there was a program on there that allowed you to see what Bluetooth devices were in your area, which I thought was pretty interesting. Might be something there. But actually, I should skip ahead. So a couple other classes I did was AV-IT, convergence, what's still not working in 2017. So that was all about kind of AV-IT convergence, obviously, and what's not working. So that was an interesting one, because we have started this whole convergence process, but it hasn't, I don't know. Think of your network as a silo, and think of how many silos you actually have. And are we truly converged? Are we fully converged? I would argue we're kind of like halfway in the middle of being converged. In some cases it makes sense to converge, in other cases it doesn't. And I think that's my take on it, and that's kind of like what the class confirmed, is that we're still kind of in this process. It's an evolutionary process. So that was interesting. Another one I did was AV as a service, talking about kind of enterprise level administrative tools to administer AV kind of in a very Cisco-like way. So that was that other class I took. But the one that's actually, I saved for last, the one that's probably actually the most interesting for people who listen to Live Sound 101, people who actually made it this far into a 33-minute video, was how to make your church sound better with Andrew Stone. So Andrew Stone is front of house, muckety-muck tech director. I'm actually not sure what his title is, but he's a live sound dude for Church on the Move out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so he shared his story, and he taught a class about how to make your church sound better. And it was really good. It was really good. He talked about control, how you control control at different levels. You got to control the acoustics in the room. Like, getting to know your room and how it behaves is kind of like, one of the very first things you got to do. And if you don't do that, you're going to be spinning your tires for a long time trying to fix a problem that you really can only fix with acoustic treatment. So control of your room, control of your speakers, control of your soundboard, control of the process that your volunteers or your sound people use, control of the inputs, you know, control of the guitar amplifiers, the bass amplifiers, control of the drums. It really started with different techniques and methods to control. But before he got into all that, he started talking about his story and how he was like on the road with a band called Everclear, and just he had this like epiphany moment where he decided to come off the road, stop touring with this rock group, and to basically do a full-time gig at this church to try to help them out because they were having issues with sound and everything. So very interesting story, and I got a lot out of the class, although I didn't get a handout. I'm kind of bummed about that, because InfoComm has this little app that allows you to collect handouts from your teachers right through the app. So they got like a little PDF of their slides that they upload to somewhere, or they email to InfoComm, and then InfoComm puts it into the app, and then the students can download the app and follow along. And it's amazing. It's amazing when the teachers actually email the handout. So I was a little disappointed actually in that aspect of it, because this was like really good information that I need to document and to keep record of, so I can go back and revisit it. So anyway, I emailed Andrew about it. Haven't heard back yet, but I would love to get that handout, because I didn't take super good notes. I didn't take notes at all for this one because I was just kind of locked into the class, and it was really good to just be present in class and not have my nose buried in a laptop. That's the trouble. Like, I love taking really good notes on my laptop, but then at the same time, you can spend so much time taking really good notes that you kind of miss some of the class because you're kind of, like I said, your nose is kind of buried in the laptop. So that was a little bit of a bummer, but overall the class was great. I would recommend it to anybody who has the opportunity to take it with Andrew Stone. I would just say, I'm very bummed. I want the handout. Please, Andrew Stone, give us the handout. We want the handout. But anyway, I'm at the Cumberland Farms and the Dunkin' Donuts. No, this is the Gulf Express. This is not a Cumberland Farms, but it is a Dunkin' Donuts. I got to get some gas and get to work. So I will see you in the next video.